opportunity, and it's such a rich opportunity. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
We'd like to invite up our next storyteller, Jeff Neven. Early in my time in Hamilton, about 5 years ago, I remember meeting Jeff for the first time. Among the various convictions he shared with me with a vigorous amount of passion, all of which I was grateful for on that day. He advised me of one thing that I still remember. He said, if you're going to start something new in this city, you need to hire the Sherman children.
That's very good advice. Very good advice. But there's only 4 children, so the rest of you are out of luck. Actually, there's more. We're on a new generation of Sherman children now after 20 years, so there's hope. There's hope. I first met Jeff when my family began worshiping at New Hope Church at Main and Kenilworth. The small church plant had been through massive change, and only a small group remained. And amidst the leaders of this remnant crew was Jeff, stubbornly refusing to give up on the people in the neighborhood. His optimism was contagious, his loyalty to his family obvious, and his desire to see God's kingdom on earth inspiring. A dozen years later, my faith has been shaped most profoundly by this small church plant that remains planted at Main and Kenilworth. Please welcome our friend, Jeff Neven.
So it's 7 a.m. and I am in a conference hall along with a bunch of other keeners. We have gotten up early to hear and join in one of the legendary Bible studies of Dr. John Perkins. We've come and we're at the Christian Community Development Association's national conference in Dallas, Texas, and the year is 2001. I've just recently joined an organization called Indwell, but somebody who's inspired me is this guy, Dr. John Perkins. And this room has come because this, at that time, nearly 80-year-old civil rights leader had something to teach us. Something to teach us about the good news of the gospel, and we wanted more of it. And so we gathered, and we're eager, and we're listening, and he's reading through his Bible, and we knew what was coming. At some point, this is what we were waiting for, an extra bit of insight, a little bit more wisdom. And you could tell it was coming, because he had this foam starting on the side of his mouth, and his voice was starting to crackle, and he grabs his water, and we're watching as he brings it near his mouth, but there's too much to say and not enough time, so the water never makes it to his mouth. And you can see at that moment, there's something he's got to tell us. He puts the water aside, and he grabs onto the podium. You knew he was serious at this point. He's holding it, and it's starting to shake. And as if he was living out in practice his principle of proximity and relocation, his body can't be held back behind the podium. And he starts to come around, it's still holding on, and he's coming closer, and we're all waiting. Come on, bring it now. And he pauses, and he says, a lot of young people have asked me a question this week. Do you know what the number one question they ask me is? He waits way too long in an awkward pause while we're like, what is it? How will I know what God's will is for my life? And he steps back behind the podium and he lifts up his Bible and he says, he's already told you. It's very clear right here. Your problem isn't to know what God's will is for your life. You got to go do something. don't remember the rest of that Bible study. Those words were like planted seeds for me. You ever have that? Where you just like, I think those words are for me, but what do they mean? I dragged my pastor with me, and we worked through some of that stuff. And as we headed back to Hamilton, we had wondered, what's next? What's next for me? What's next for us? What's next for Hamilton? What's next for this little organization that at that time was about 25 years old, Indwell, that I had just joined? What's next? Fast forward 8 years. And we'll throw on that next slide. I find myself once again in an audience listening to John Perkins. But this time, I'm not in Texas. I'm in East Hamilton, just a couple of blocks from my house. And once again, John is teaching us. He's teaching us about what the gospel means here in our place right now. And we're in this old building. Indwell had just bought this building, the old Jam Rock nightclub. And we didn't know what the future would look like. We didn't have funding, but we knew that there was something about this place that was dark. It was painted black and purple, and on the very stage where today John Perkins was standing was a stage where women had performed before, only weeks before. And below us were private rooms that had been used for human trafficking and sex work. But today John Perkins is standing on this stage, and we can feel it again. We can feel that something's about to happen, that there's redemption going on right in front of our eyes. And so when John Perkins grabbed that sledgehammer and took it to the wall behind the stage to mark the significance that there was going to be a new day here and we were going to rebuild, and this was going to be a place of welcome, we had this real strong taste that we no longer had seeds, but there was sprouts of renewal coming up for us. We had some tastes of it. That stage, New Hope Church was now worshiping on it. Behind us, the bar, literally the taps had been taken out, but that's about it, was now the nursery. And New Hope Community Bikes was on the old dance floor, fixing up bikes and welcoming people in. And here we are, 15 years after that sledgehammer. You can do the next picture there. And we've seen so many markers of the kingdom of God here on earth as it is in heaven. Haven't we? We have. Not only in this place, in this building, but across our city. But yet, there's work still to be done. I want more of this kingdom. I don't want just kingdom seeds and kingdom shoots. I want kingdom trees, kingdom forests all around us. That's what I'm looking for. When I opened my newspaper this week, and maybe you've been following the dialogue, that a community is arguing that we need to preserve parking lots to store cars rather than to be turned into affordable housing. And politicians are buying into that vision. When I opened up my social media this week, I read of a story in the York region where neighbors had successfully stopped a transitional housing building that would have taken people out of encampments, out of tents, and into units, into housing. I had a flashback to standing on a stage in December with a group much bigger than that's here today. 500 people in person, 200 online, shouting that we're going to destroy their neighborhood by welcoming people into affordable housing. And I think we need a lot more kingdom trees. I thought about Terry, who lives in Gage Park in my neighborhood in a tent with his girlfriend and his friend. Thought about the two people that sleep in their cars on my block. That's their home. Thought about the 6 tents down at the end of my street, right at the Delta there. 11 people were there last time when our friend from New Hope went and brought sandwiches. And when I think about that, I feel guilt. I have a home. I'm going to sleep in a warm bed tonight. And there's a verse that chases me. It's James 2. Do you know it? It talks about our faith. It says this, what good is it? What good is it if a brother or sister comes to you and says, who's hungry or naked, and you say, have a good day. Be warm and well fed. I hope your day goes better than it is right now. And do nothing. My heart breaks. I know yours does too, because we're followers of Jesus and we know that his heart is broken for Terry, for others in my neighborhood, for others in your neighborhood, for the folks on the steps of this building. But in those spots of despair, in those spots of, God, come on, we want to see your kingdom fully come. We don't want to just taste it. We don't want to just have seeds and sprouts. We want this forest of your kingdom now. What's God talking to me, to you, to us? What's God saying for us in this place, right now in our city? I know he's built this. 20 years of True City coming together. I look around our city, and I and my family might just be one little spot on Roslyn Avenue South. But Anya's up the street on Roslyn Avenue North, and folks here are on streets all over our city. And while New Hope Church is a small church at Main and Kenilworth, and its impact maybe doesn't feel so big all the time, across this city, there's churches that are letting their light shine. One little light here, one little light there doesn't seem to make a difference, but when we come together in a place like this, 20 years on, we know that those little lights here and those little lights there blanket our city in a glow. And we've tasted that and we've seen that, and those are the trees of the kingdom that we see here and now and coming. When you walk through the room over there, you see the organizations that, like me and like Indwell in the last 25 years of our phase, have grown up in sync with us all, with True City. We see ministries that were founded here from those seeds that are growing and are being sustained. We see businesses that have popped up who are intentionally providing jobs for those who wouldn't have it. We see churches connecting with their neighbors that we haven't seen before. We see people getting housing. We see refugees being welcomed into empty bedrooms and homes. These are the signs of the good news of the kingdom. And I urge us to pray with Jesus. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Where? On earth. How about right here in Hamilton, as it is in heaven? Can we say that together? Let me just pray this together. Can we say it out loud? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in Hamilton as it is in heaven. May we continue to pray that prayer, and may we ask ourselves, what does God have next for us? What has God called us to be and to do? What's God putting on your heart today that is seeds that will develop into sprouts and flourish into kingdom trees?